Bonjour, good morning. I hope you're well this morning. Il fait froid. It's cold. Mais j'espère que tu vas bien. So, bienvenue à notre classe aujourd'hui. And last week we were having the exams. We had cuts the other time. And so now we wish to continue with what we're supposed to cover this semester. I will remind us that we started with the verb s'appeler, which means to be called. And we saw how you conjugate this verb, which is also referred to as a reflexive verb. We saw it is a type of verb that when you conjugate it, you use an extra pronoun, because when you look at the verb, it has a pronoun. There is a word in front of the main verb. And so even when you're conjugating it with the different persons, je, tu, il, elle, nous, vous, il, elle, pluriel, you find that you need to have that extra pronoun in front of the verb. And then we also looked at numbers, and we used the numbers to talk about the time. And we saw the question for what is the time? Quelle heure est-il? Quelle heure est-il? I asked which verb are you seeing there, which is familiar. And you told me you're seeing the verb il est. Il est comes from the verb être. We use the same numbers to talk about one's age. So the question for how old are you? Quel âge as-tu? Or quel âge avez-vous? And we saw that in talking about your age in French, we do not say I am 18 years old. In French, you say I have 18 years old. And so in the question, the way it says, quel âge as-tu? It means when I am conjugating it, I stick to the verb avoir, so that tu as, you have in the question becomes I have in the answer. That is why you say j'ai 18 ans. The same numbers, we use them to see how to write the date. Quelle est la date? C'est quelle date aujourd'hui? Or quelle est la date aujourd'hui? Different ways of asking the same thing. And so we saw that when you use that, when you're answering that, quelle est la date? We are using the verb être. So that now you say, c'est lundi le 16. C'est lundi le 16 juin 2020, right? And so today, I wish to go back to the verbs. I don't know if anybody has joined in. Qui est là? Kindly, when you come in, let me see you so that we are able to take the register, and also I'm able to talk to someone. At least when I ask a question and I get a response, we are able to move on together. At least I'm sure that we are on the same line. So I have shared our topic for today. Our topic for today is le verbe du premier groupe. Les verbes du premier groupe. The verbs of the first group, or group 1 verbs. Les verbes the premier group. And so before I start talking about the topic, I will want to refer us back. Let's go back to what we learned last semester. Last semester, there are 3 verbs which you learned. 3 verbs. If you came to all your classes, you have all your notes. There are 3 verbs which you memorized. And there's a reason why you had to memorize these verbs. And so my question is, which verbs were these we learned last semester? Is there someone? So last semester, I believe the first verb that we learned in class was the verb être. Être means to be. We memorize it. Why did we memorize it? We memorize it because we call it irregular. It's an irregular verb. You know, when you look at the original verb and the way you conjugate it, there's really no relation. The verb is être. It means to be. When I want to say I am, I say je suis, tu es, il est, elle est. Nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont, elles sont. The verb avoir, which means to have, we say j'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. Caroline, bonjour. Bonjour Caroline. Kwani unakuja dakika moja alafu unapotea?
Bonjour, madame.
Comment ça va?
Ça va bien.
Now tell me. I have just talked about the verbs that you learned last semester. I have mentioned there are 3 of them. We learned the verb être, which means to be. We learned the verb avoir, which means to have. What was the 3rd one we learned? Which one was the 3rd one? The verb?
The verb aller.
Aller, aller, aller.
Aller.
Yes, aller. Aller means what?
To have, no?
It means?
To go.
To go. And how did we conjugate it? The verb is aller, but we say, how do we conjugate it in the present tense? We say, what's the conjugation of the verb aller? We say what? The way I said, the verb is être, but we say je suis, tu es. And for aller, what do we say? Nangoja Carolina. You're muting and I'm waiting for you to give me the conjugation of the verb aller, which means to go.
Je vais.
Mm-hmm.
Tu vas.
Mm-hmm.
il va, elle va,
Mhm.
il va, elle
Mhm.
va, nous, nous allons,
Mhm.
voilà,
Vous allez, allez, IZ. Mhm.
il, il a, elle, il va, elle va.
Mhm. That is how you say, but you need to get it correctly. You know, when you say il or is which verb? Which verb do we say il or, el or? The verb is when we say il or, el or, it's which verb? Which verb are we talking about? The verb? Yes, it is the verb avoir. And so the reason why we start with those three verbs is because they are key verbs. You can mute your mic now. The reason why we start with the verb avoir, which means to have, the verb être, which means to be, the verb aller, which means to go. Number one, they are irregular. So we cram them the way that verb is. Carol, please mute your mic.
Okay, let me mute.
And so when we cram these three, we memorize them, because again you find that you will meet them when you want to write verbs. Bado una nini? Bado hujamute? Unakataa kumute?
Nakataa kumute. Hey. Let me try.
Inakataa na kuona tu bado hujamute. Kwa sawa sasa. So we memorize these three verbs. They are key verbs because you will always use them. We have learned them in semester 1. We are going to use them in semester 2. You're going to use the same in semester 3. Yani all French, there is a way one of these three verbs will always turn up when you want to talk about verbs in the past tense, or when now it gets to talking to plans for the future. You must use these verbs. And so please, can we make sure that these three verbs, we have them on our fingertips? They are on our fingertips. When you're asked, il so, which verb is that? You should be able to tell it is the verb être. If you're told the verb je suis, which verb is that? It is still être, right? And so today I want to look at the other verbs. There are other verbs. In fact, there are thousands. Karo umekata kwenda na kuona. There are thousands of action words. For example, now, to teach, to walk, to speak, to telephone, to call, to go, to come, to move, to arrive, they are in the thousands. The verbs are in the thousands. And so we cannot say that you're going to start cramming the verbs one by one. We don't do that. So what you're going to find is that there's usually a rule. There is a rule which now we apply. And now for you to apply this rule, you need to know which verb is this you're talking about. What is the verb? So that you know the rule. which you can use on it. And so I will begin by saying that when you want to write a verb in the present tense, you start with the original verb. The original verb is what we call the infinitive. The infinitive in French is l'infinitive. L'infinitive. The same spelling in English, but now in French it ends with an F instead of a VE. In English it's infinitive. In French, it is still infini with an F now. But of course, in French, you say l'infinitive with an L apostrophe in front of it. And so I am saying that the original verb is what we are going to use, the infinitive of the verb. So when you talk about an infinitive, it is the original verb, the original verb. So now let me put a question to you, Caro, again. So when I'm talking about an infinitive, an original verb, which ones are these you have met? Which verbs are these you know, which you know their original verb, the original verb, the infinitive? We are talking about which particular verbs?
The verbs that are original.
Yes, the ones that we have met. I'm saying, how do you tell for you to conjugate a verb, you're coming from an infinitive. You're coming from the original. So now I am asking you, which are these three original verbs you know? These three. We are talking about which one, and which one?
The extra avoir.
Exactly, the verb être, the verb avoir, the verb aller. Those are now infinitives. Very good. Those are now infinitives. So how do you tell an infinitive? So I will define an infinitive by saying that it is a verb that has its original ending. It has the original ending. Why am I saying the original ending? Because the main statement I will start by is saying that all French verbs, I am underlining all French verbs, they fall under three major categories. Are we together? All French verbs fall under three major categories. Are we together?
Yes.
So what are these categories we are talking about? The three categories are the verbs ending with ER. Verbs, that is category one, verbs ending with ER, a verb that has ER at the end. The second group are verbs ending with IR. Verb can end with IR. And the third category are verbs ending with RE. So we have category one or group one, verbs ending with ER. Group two are verbs ending with IR. And group three are verbs ending with RE. So those are the three main categories. Any verb you come across, it must fall under one of these three. It must fall under one of these three. So having said that, Caro, can you tell me, can you categorize the verb that we learned last semester?
The verbs.
Categorize. So which one will fall under group one? Which one will fall under group two? Which one will fall under group three? Come again?
Will fall under group one. The verb ending with ER.
Mm-hmm.
Then the verb ending with IR will fall.
Mm-hmm.
Then etc. will fall under group 3, the verb ending with re.
Yes, that is what you're supposed to look at. This is how you do it. You look at those two last words. The original verb must either end with ER group 1, IR group 2, or RE group 3. And so today we want to look at the verbs that are ending with ER, a verb that is ending with ER. For example, now, I am speaking. To speak in French is parler. How do you spell parler? Write it P-A-R-L-E-R. You've gotten that?
Yeah.
P-A-R-L-E-R. That is the verb to speak. Parler. Tuko pamoja hapo?
Pardon, please.
I'm saying I want us to look at one verb so that we see how you conjugate it in the present tense. So I want to use the verb in French is parler. Parler, the spelling is P-A-R-L-E-R.
Parler.
You've gotten it?
Yes.
Yes, so that is an example of a verb ending with er, parler. And so you've told me the verb aller would fall under the er, yes? But now parler is an irregular verb. That is why we memorize it the way it is. But now there are these others which we will term regular. Regular in the sense that you can use a certain formula. There is a formula you can use when you want to write it in the present tense, or preso dell'indicativo, in the present tense. So what are you supposed to do? I'll give you the steps. Step 1, write it down. You remove the ending. So if I am saying you remove the ending, what are you going to remove in that word? What will you remove?
ER.
You will remove the ER. So the step 1, you remove the ending, meaning you've removed ER. So step 2 says you add. Now you add. What are you adding? You're adding something to what has remained. What has remained after you removed the ER? What remained after you removed the ER? Caroline, after removing the ER, what did you remain with? Caro, nakungojea. Ama kuna mtu mwingine pia ameingia? Ati mnajua mnapenda kunyamazia huko kwa background. And I want to see you guys. See you speak up. After removing the ER from parler, what has remained? Somebody? Okay, Carol, you seem to have disappeared. Now, our verb is parler, which means to speak. The spelling is P-A-R-L-E-R. So I am saying that when you want to conjugate this verb in the present tense, o preso, I have said step 1, you remove the ending. Removing the ending means you remove the ER. So it means when you remove the ER, what do you remain with? You're remaining with PARL. And so I said step 2, after now you have removed the ER. For the second step now, when I want to conjugate it with the first person, je, I'm going to add E. Add E to PARL, meaning I'm going to get a new word, PARLE. Je parle, I speak, or I'm speaking, je parle, ending with E. And then I want to conjugate it with the second person singular, tu. What do? I add ES. Where am I adding ES? To PARL. So I end up with PARLES. So when I want to say you speak or you're speaking, I'll say tu parles. Tu parles. Ending is ES. I want to conjugate it with the third person singular, il, el. What do? I'm adding E. Add E. Where are you adding E? To PARL. What do you end up with? PARLE. So you say il parle, elle parle. Remember we said E at the end of a word is usually silent in French. And S again is silent at the end of a word. So that is why you're hearing me say je parle, tu parles, il parle, elle parle. You can see that for je parle and il parle, elle parle. It's the same thing. What do you mean by it's the same thing? Both end with an E. Both end with an E. But for tu, you have added ES. But when you pronounce it, they sound the same. Je parle, tu parles, il parle, elle parle. We go to the plural persons. The first person plural, nous. We say for nous now we add ONS. Where are we adding ONS? To PARL. So I end up with PARL. ONS. So we say nous parlons. Nous parlons, right? And then we go to the second person plural, which is vous. When you're conjugating this a verb that is in the first group with vous, after removing the ER, we add EZ, EZ. So meaning I will end up with PARLEZ. Vous parlez, vous parlez. That is the spelling of the verb with vous. PARLEZ. Vous parlez. You speak or you are speaking. Vous parlez. And then we go to the third person plural, which is il, elle. So now, when we looked at plurals with the nouns, we were either adding an S or we were adding X, if you remember well. The nouns, the naming words. So now, I want this plural person, il, elle, with a verb. So I'm supposed to add ENT. Where am I adding this ENT? I am adding it to the verb after removing the ending. The ending. I have said the ending
You are
can.
currently the only person in this conference.
The ending can either be ER, IR, or RE. And so when I want to write this verb parler with il, elle pluriel, I'm adding ENT to PARL. So my new word becomes PARLENT. Il parle, elle parle. That's how you say it. So what is the conjugation of the verb parler, which means to speak? When I want to write it, say it in the present tense, I will say je parle. Remember, the original verb is parler, parler, which means to speak. I'm saying A because the last letter is an R, and so I pronounce that E, and we saw E is a vowel sound. We saw that letter E, you pronounce it as the vowel sound A. That is why I'm saying parler. So the verb is parler. I say in the present tense, je parle. Tu parles. Il parle, elle parle. Nous parlons. Vous parlez. Il parle, elle parle. Right? I hope you've gotten that right. So what is the general rule we use when you're conjugating or when you want to write a verb in the present tense? In summary, it means step 1, I remove the ER. Step 2, add. What am I adding? I'm adding E, ES, EONS, EZ, ENT. In the order of the subjects, the way we learned them. You need to remember je is followed by tu, then il, elle, then nous, then vous, il, elle, pluriel. Because once you mix this order, then the rule will not work. And so the endings of a verb in the present tense, a verb ending with ER, it will either end with E, ES, EONS, EZ, ENT. And of course, that is je, I'm adding an E. Tu is ES. Il and elle is that E. Nous is the ONS. Vous is the EZ. And then il, elle, pluriel is ENT. Kama sijui kama umepata hiyo kitu nimesema.
No, I had some connection issues.
You did what?
I had some connection issues, sijasikia kitu umesema.
Lakini si utaweza sikiliza, you can listen in again later.
Yeah.
Now, when you disappeared, where were we? Tulikuwa tumesema nini?
We're looking at the verb to speak,
Mm-hmm.
and we had reached to vous parlez.
Vous parlez. Parlez, what is the spelling of that? Parlez?
Spelling of
Parlez, parlez, vous parlez. How do you write that parlez?
A.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Z.
Yes. PARLEZ. And so we said, when we're conjugating a verb with vous in the present tense, after removing the ER, unaongeza EZ, right? Then we go to the third person plural, which is il, elle. So when I want to conjugate this same verb parler with il, elle, pluriel, after removing the ER, you add ENT. What do you add?
You add
Umepotea tena.
you add what?
For il, elle, pluriel, when I want to conjugate the verb, I add ENT. E-N-T. So I am asking. So when I want to say il parle, elle parle, what is the spelling of that parle in pluriel? The spelling is?
L-E-N-T.
L-E-N-T. And so in summary, what I am saying, now the general rule which you apply is for a verb ending with ER. Step 1, remove ER. Step 2, add. What are you adding? E, E-S, E, O-N-S, E-Z, E-N-T. When I say that, I expect you to be able to connect it with, I'm talking about J, you add the E. Tu, you're adding the ES. Il, L, you're adding the E. Nous, you're adding ONS. Vous, you're adding EZ. And then il, L, pluriel, you're adding ENT, which means that you must remember the order of the subject pronouns. You remember we started with the first person singular, second person singular, and that is always the order a verb will follow. So that now when I tell you use this order, use this formula on it, the formula is E-E-S-E, O-N-S, E-Z, E-N-T. You automatically know that that order should fit into je, tu, il, elle, nous, vous, il, elle, pluriel. Are we together?
Yeah.
So that is how you work with the verbs in the present tense. And so what do I want you to do? I want you to go to the dictionary or you Google, wherever you'll go. I want you to identify verbs, what you do every day: sleep, eat, walk, read, those kind of words. I want you to specifically look for those ending with ER, those ending with ER. For example, to work is travailler, ending with ER. So I want you to get like 5 verbs or about what you do every day. Verbs that belong to the first group of verbs, meaning they're ending with ER. I want you to conjugate those verbs in the present tense so that you see what we are talking about. I want you to see that when you want to say I speak, I cannot use parler ending with ER. Just like when last semester when we learned the verb être, I could not say that I am is you être. No, there is a way we need to like change the original verb so that it agrees with the subject. Again, it agrees with the tense. Right now, we are working with the present tense. And so the endings of a verb that belongs to the first group, verbs ending with ER. When you meet any verb, even if you don't know its meaning, you should be able to tell me the subject, because I have just told you. How will you know the subject? You look at the ending of that verb. So that if you come across any verb, umepewa yoyote, umepewa écouter, umepewa travailler, umepewa habiter, it's ending with EZ. So definitely you will know, Caroline, who is the subject. It's ending with EZ. So automatically you know the subject is? The subject is? Unakata?
Subject must be vous.
The subject must be vous. How do you know it is vous? You have looked at the ending, because now we have learned that any verb in the first group, when you're conjugating it with vous in the present tense, after removing the ER, you add EZ. And so you're able to work with any given verb as long as you know that this rule that we have just learned. And that rule now you check which is the last word, in the verb. And remember we said verb action, it goes with someone or something that is doing that action. For me to use that travailler ending with EZ, there must be a subject. Unajua EZ inaenda na vous. If it was travailleur ending with ONS, I will not definitely the subject is nous. The only thing now I said is that remember for je and for il, elle, the ending is the same. Huh? They are both ending with an E, because I have said the formula is adding E, ES, E, ONS, EZ, and then EN. So that is how you conjugate verbs in the present tense. Verbs in the first category, premier group, verbs ending with ER. That is how you're going to conjugate them in present tense. So now I want to look at another subsection just under the verbs. I want to look at the negative. Negative. The negative is when you want to say you are not doing something. When you're not doing something, how do you write that in French? So when I want to say I'm not speaking, or I don't speak. You don't speak. We have said je parle, tu parles, il parle, elle parle. Nous parlons, vous parlez, il parle, elle parle. So now I want to say I'm not doing that. So how do I use the negative? How do I say that I am not doing, you're not doing? I need to use two words. There are two words I use. The first word I use is ne. Ne is N-E. You remember we saw le. So now I'm saying ne, N-E. And N-E, then I will say dot, dot, dot. Dot, 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 meaning there is a word there, followed by pa, P-A-S. So I have two words. I have ne, N-E, and then I have dot, dot, dot. There's supposed to be a word there, and then pa, ne and pa. Ne and pa, they go together. You cannot choose one without the other. They must go together. Ne, pa. I have said there's a dash, 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 dot, 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 dot. There's a word that goes between ne and pa. The word that goes between ne and pa is the verb. The verb. The verb. I have just said we have learned the verb parler. When I want to say I speak, I say je parle. I don't speak, je ne parle pas. Tuko pamoja? Je parle. In the negative becomes je ne parle pas. I've said the two words you use when you're writing in the negative is ne and pas. N-E and P-A-S. But in the middle of those two words, you put your verb. You put your verb. So, Caroline, let me give you a simple sentence. You tell me in the negative, right? I'll say, je suis une étudiante. Je suis une étudiante. Je suis une étudiante. How do you say that on negative?
Remember the negative side, how we say it.
Come again?
The negative side, how we say it.
I'm saying for you to write in the negative, you're using two words. The two words you're using is ne and pa. Ne is N-E. Pa is P-A-S. Ne, pa, right? And what goes between ne and pa? The verb. The verb, that action word goes between ne and pa. And so I have given an example using the verb we have used today to illustrate the verb parler. I say the verb is parler, to speak. When I want to say I speak, I will say je parle, I speak. Now I want to put it in the negative. I want to say I am not speaking. I will say je ne parle pas. Je ne parle pas. What have I done? I've picked my verb pad, and then I've put ne and pa around it. Ne and pa around the verb. Or in other words, I'm putting the verb in between ne and pa. Tuko pamoja sasa?
Yes, yes.
So now I've given a simple sentence. Je suis une étudiante. Je suis une étudiante. Au négatif,
Je ne pas suis. Je
Ati?
ne,
Mhm.
je ne pas suis un étudiant.
Tell me what mistake you have done. Tell me where you have gone wrong. Correct yourself. Look at it again. I have said ne and pas are the two words you use, but your verb goes between the two of them. The verb goes between ne and pa. Ne and pa hazifuatanangi hivyo. There is something that goes between ne and pa. The verb goes between ne and pa. Or in other words, you're putting ne and pa around your verb. So you get your verb, alafu unaweka ne na pa around it. Ikuwe katikati yake, ne na pa. So what is the correct answer? Je suis une étudiante. Je suis une étudiante. Au négatif,
It's like I'm not getting it yet.
have you gotten NE and PAS? Have you gotten those two words?
EMPAS.
They are two separate words. NE, and then is PAS.
Yes.
Now I am saying, hazifuatani hivyo. A word goes between the two of them. A word goes between ne and pa. And that word I'm talking about is the verb. You must put the verb between ne and pa. So listen, I am saying je parle. Au négatif becomes je ne parle pas. Je ne parle pas. What have I done? I have put ne and pa around parle. Parle is in the middle of ne and pa. So once I put ne and pa around the verb, or I put the verb between ne and pa, I have written it in the negative. So can you do the same for that sentence? Je suis une étudiante. How will you write that negative?
Je suis pas un étudiant.
Exactly. Je ne suis pas une étudiante. What have you done? You have identified your verb. The verb is which one?
Je suis.
The verb is? It's one word. The verb is one word.
The verb is extra.
The verb is extra, yes, but how in the sentence? Which is that particular word we are talking about? Hmm?
Yes.
The verb itself, the sentence is je suis une étudiante. Remember, when we are working with verbs, all verbs must have subject. Lazima ikuwe na je, tu, il, el, zote lazima zikuwe na hiyo. What will change is the verb, the action, because now you can be talking about to be, to have, to go, to speak. Yeah, so I am asking in that sentence, our verb is which one? Which word is our verb now there? Je suis une étudiante. Our verb is which is our verb?
Good.
Suis. Our verb is suis. Suis. So that suis ndio unaweka ne na pa around it. Once I put ne and pa around it, it becomes a negative. My original sentence, je suis une étudiante. I am a student. So when I want to say I am not a student, I'll say je ne suis pas une étudiante. What have I done? I have used the two negative words, ne and pa. What have I put in the middle? I have put my verb, and my verb there is sweet. Of course, I know sweet, the original verb is etra. So that is how you work when you want to write a verb in the negative. Am I clear? Fine. And so I think I'm going to end it here unless there's a question. You have a question, Caroline? Uko na swali? Caroline, you're okay? Unakatika, sikusikii. Imagine hata sikusikii, unakatika. Unasema? The connection. Jaribu tena. Is that, I'll open a discussion forum there. Kindly share your verbs, because I have said get like 5 verbs which you have conjugated in the present tense. Different verbs, but ensure the verb belongs to the first group. How do you ensure it belongs to the first group? You look at the ending. And these verbs I'm saying have to do with what you do in your daily activities, what you do. Any 5, contribute them and share them up for discussion forum. So I'm going to put up the notes there and the revision exercises. So if there is anything, just post your question up for discussion forum. I'll be able to see it and answer. All right? Okay. Bonne journée. Au revoir.